of that event will get let off. Why are we printing money? Why are we borrowing money to give to people who aren't even necessarily in financial trouble to begin with? I was all for helping the American people out, and I still am. But I never agreed with the fact that we need to be recklessly printing money to help out people who might want to decide to buy a third BMW this year. That is not what the stimulus package is for. The lockdown
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Abraham Lincoln would be rolling in his grave right now if he knew that our so-called Republican leaders were doing to this party. A party that is supposed to stand for freedom. A party that represents everything the United States Constitution stands for. A party that so many American patriots literally fought to their death fighting for. But lately, our Republican leadership seem to have forgotten about all of that. They seem to have forgotten the conservative values that us patriots have voted them to protect. They have let the radical left walk all over us. They have allowed big tech to destroy our freedom of speech. And worst of all, they have turned on each other for votes rather than honoring the oath they swore to uphold. The rhinos blame former President Trump for the downfall of the Republican Party, but I'm blaming the rhinos themselves for being cowards and for selling out to the highest bidder. Trump didn't fracture the party. The old school washed up rhinos have, and it's about time they are all removed so America can get back to an American first mentality where we protect our borders and put the American people first. But it appears that I'm not the only one who has had enough. An elite slew of modern day, or an entire slew of modern day conservative fighters have exploded onto the scene to voice their concern for the direction America is headed. A new generation of fighters that will do whatever it takes to regain control of the very fractured but not yet totally broken party. And the likes of Candace Owens may just be the one to make the first move in waking the American people up. Today we start the show with a little surprise that Candace dropped on her Twitter account this weekend. Let's get into the show. So as I was going through social media this morning, as I do every single morning and minute for my life for that fact, I see that Candace Owens decided to drop a political bomb on her Twitter feed over the weekend. I think it's great that people like Candace is now finally considering and stepping up to the plate and saying, you know what, maybe I too can do something to help this very fractured United States of America right now. So Candace Owens, the conservative writer and commentator who co-founded the Blexit movement, said over the weekend on Twitter that she was mulling a presidential run. So we now have Candace Owens kind of thinking about whether she might make a move here. Why is she thinking this? Well, she turned 32, or she turns 32 in April, and she's now going to be old enough to run in 24. So, according to Fox News, Candace Owens says she's thinking about running for president. Owens, who turns 32 in April, would be old enough to run in 2024. So obviously the wheels are turning here. She's a massive political influence from the sidelines. She hasn't been in politics herself per se, but she's a much bigger voice than most of the Republican Party politicians that I know. She seems to fight a lot harder than the people that we have in office right now. And that's a very sad thing that's going on right now, that we have political influencers, conservative influencers sitting on the sidelines who fight harder for America than the politicians that we actually voted to fight. That's how out of control the situation has gotten today. So Candace Owens, the conservative writer and commentator, okay, remember she co-founded the Blexit movement, okay, she's now mauling a presidential run on Twitter over the weekend. So this is what Candace Owens tweeted. She tweeted, "I love America. Thinking about running for president." Now, Candace, you can't just drop a political bomb like that on Twitter and then not back it up. So for her to have even thrown that out there in the first place says a lot about what's going through Candace's mind. I mean, she has a massive, massive following. This one tweet alone got over about almost 250,000 likes, 52,000 comments. So there's no disputing whether Candace has the following or whether somebody like Candace Owens can get the backing. We know she's a diehard patriot that speaks her mind. She doesn't flip on issues just to try to please everybody on social media. She's very one-sided, one-directional voice that 100% speaks for and defends everything the Constitution represents. So there's no disputing whether she'd actually be a good candidate. I think Candace Owens would be a phenomenal candidate, but does she really stand a chance? Does somebody as young as Candace, will she really be a threat to the Democrat Party? Will she be taken seriously amongst our own party? Before we get into the rest of the article, let's head over to the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what the American people have to say on the social media post that Fox News threw up on their page this morning. So Candace Owens is considering or mulling a presidential run. She says she's thinking about running for president. Let's take a look at the Keyboard Warrior comments and see what they have to say. And this says a lot. All of these comments here will give us a little bit of an idea and paint a little bit of a picture as to what the American people are really thinking about the situation on a small scale. So Jeremy says she'd be the best female president of our lifetime. Says a lot. Female president, we yet to have one. To be honest, I'd rather see her in charge than Kamala Harris. Nicole says, yes, please, I'd vote for her in a New York minute. So a lot of support here. A lot of people voicing their positive comments. Gary says, I'd love to see Candace run. Yes, American flags, thumbs up. You've got a whole onslaught of support. Kristen says, I would love for her to be president someday, but I think she needs to get her feet wet first in Congress. I tend to agree with Kristen's comment here. I do think, as much as I would love to see a true diehard conservative patriot back in charge, I do think personally that Candace should kind of try her luck maybe in the House or the Senate first. If she can smash her way into Congress, then she'll obviously stand a very good chance in moving up through the ranks into president one day, possibly. I think it's a bold move going straight from, although a very influential political figure, I still think it's a very bold move going from her position today straight in for a presidential bid. You have to remember, if she's going to go for it, you better believe people like AOC, although it's probably extremely premature for somebody like her to go for it as well, but you will start to see a whole slew of competition at the same time. So, yes, I agree with Kristen here. I think it's great. I think it's great that the wheels are turning, but I do think that she might need to get her feet wet as well in Congress. Callie says, I would definitely consider voting for her. She brings high intelligence, a voice of reason, strong desires for America to succeed, fairness, and an immense love for her country. She will make good decisions based on what is right and wrong and won't sell out or be bought and paid for by anyone. That's a phenomenal comment, and I absolutely agree with Kelly here. And this is what the Republican Party needs right now. We need conservative patriots running the show based on true conservative values and beliefs, not based on who they're going to cater to or who they're going to get the most money from. Because we are sick to death of putting leaders in power who have been bought and paid for, because they don't get a true voice. They don't get an unbiased say in how America should be run. They are controlled and dictated to by the very people who literally paid their way into their position. And that is what we are sick of. We are sick of, conservatives are sick of and done with the elitists running the show in Washington. We are sick of the Mitt Romneys. We are sick of the Liz Cheneys. And we need more Lauren Berberts, Marjorie Taylor Greenes, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawleys. I don't care what anybody thinks about what they may have or may have not had to do with the latest Capitol building attack. That is neither here or there when it comes to them wanting to defend the Constitution, freedom of speech, Second Amendment rights. These are things that Republican conservatives stand for. And when you have Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney agreeing with big tech, agreeing with freedom to assemble at the Capitol for a completely legit and legal protest, when you have the likes of Mitt Romney shaming Republicans for assembling and protesting and speaking their mind and challenging the voting process, the electoral process. All that was done was challenges. There's nothing illegal about raising your hand, or there is nothing unethical about raising your hand and saying, hey, maybe we should just look into this a little bit more. There is nothing wrong with any of that. And as far as I'm concerned, that is all that any of these true Republican patriotic leaders, the likes of Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, the only thing they're guilty of is defending the Constitution, defending freedom of speech. After all, we grew up in America being told that it was okay to question and challenge the status quo. And that's all that any of these Republican conservative leaders have done. So we're done with the elitists running the show. We have to remember, it wasn't just about draining the Democratic swamp. Trump came in with intentions to drain the entire swamp. And that means draining the swamp on both sides, both the Republican and the Democrat side. He didn't just go after Democrats, although that was his first target. He wanted to drain all of Washington, D.C. of the elitist swamp that continue to do everything but put America first. That was always Trump's original agenda. So we now have been woken up to the corruption and the America last narrative that so many Republican conservatives are not okay with. So just because Trump's gone doesn't mean our fight isn't going to continue. He started the fight. Now 74 million strong are going to continue that fight. But we do need leaders in charge who are going to continue that fight with us. We can't do it on our own. There's only so many shows I can do to get out there to really make an influence here. We do need the likes of Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Rand Paul to step up and take control now and not be afraid to speak their mind and push the conservative agenda or the America First agenda that this country so desperately needs right now. Let's head back to the keyboard warrior Cam and see what the American people have to say about Candace Owens and the thought or the prospect of her running for president in 2024. Krista says, she's got my vote. Brilliant woman. This is a woman I'd love to see in the White House. And not just because she's a woman. I'm so sick of people voting based on race or gender. I vote for who is right for the job. While it's great to have a female in office, we need one smart and capable. Candace is bull. It's a great comment. I think not to discredit Vice President Kamala Harris, but I'm not sure she's the right person for the job. Was she truly picked by Biden because she was the best candidate America had? I don't think so. I don't think she was even close. I could throw darts at a dartboard and probably find somebody better than Kamala Harris to sit as our vice president right now. So I think there's a lot of women. I think having a female as president would probably be the best thing for America right now, but not based on race or gender. And if you look at what Biden just did, his entire communications team is all women. That's great if they're truly the most qualified and skilled. But just putting together an all women's communication team because they are women is the very definition of racism. And that is Biden saying, hey, I'm not even going to look at skill set anymore. Let's just pack it with women to make it look like I care. Well, that to me makes it look like you really don't have a clue as to what this country's going through right now, if that's your mindset on how you pick your communications team. The cabinet, Biden's cabinet, the most diverse cabinet that's ever been formed in American history. Again, I'm all for diversification. I'm all for the candidate for the job. And if that means that every single candidate that Biden picked for his cabinet is truly the most qualified and the best thing for America, then I'm all for it. Then I think it's phenomenal. I think finally we have some diversity in Washington, but I don't believe for a second that's actually what happened. I think that Biden has stacked the cabinet with diversification just to put on a show. And that to me, when you disregard every white person, I guess in this case, because his cabinet is packed with everybody but pretty much white people, then again, is that not the very definition of racism? When you don't give a certain race a chance because you're trying to pack a cabinet with every other race. To me, that's not putting the best and most qualified skill set forward. So Candace, I love her. I think she's great. I think she, as we just read from this comment here from Krista, it's not about race. It's not about gender. It's about the right person for the job. And I think the likes of Candace Owens could be the right person or represents the type of patriot America needs to run in 2024. And it's not too early to start thinking about this now. We got the primaries, which are just right around the corner. Before we know it, they're going to the presidential election for 2024 is going to be upon us. They do run and for about 2 years leading up to the presidential election. So it's never too early to start thinking about it. Colleen says, please do, Candace Owens. That would be pure blessing and a real win for women. I was saddened about the first VP woman being Harris. She is not the role model for little girls that everyone makes her out to be. You are an honorable black woman fighting to get the truth out to the black community that Democrat leaders do not care about them not one bit. For that, I commend you. Real change needs to happen in Democrat-run cities to save lives of black children. If Democrat leaders cared about black lives, they would fight for real change in those cities and build up the black community instead of leaving it the way it is, that kids can't make it to their 18th birthday. Isn't that so sad? out of all the hundreds of millions of dollars that Black Lives Matter have raised, I don't think they've done a damn thing for these broken Black communities. How much money was actually used to improve these poverty-stricken Black communities? How much money have they put in to restore and rebuild and literally transform poverty into respectable communities? All I see is that money going towards more Democrat bids into the pockets of the Democrat Party so they can get ready for their next presidential campaign. To me, BLM really is nothing more than a money laundering scheme. It does everything but actually raise money for Black communities. And I think somebody like Candace, who has called them out for the corrupted organization that they really are and has exposed them for all the lies, I absolutely agree with her. I think that she, and if it's not a president, if Candace doesn't actually run for president, I would love to see somebody like Candace Owens in Congress, out there fighting for real, not this fake pretend BS, but really out there fighting for Black communities. I think it would be amazing to see somebody like her in charge doing exactly that. Tara says she would make an awesome president one day. She's young and recently got married and just had a baby. Better enjoy your family while you can, because running for president will take all your time away from your family. I love Candace Owens. She's one of my favorite conservative speakers. It's true, she did just have a newborn baby. So is she ready to get out there? Because you'd have to start now. You'd actually have to start the fight right now, today. And she did announce it at about the right time. I mean, 4 years is not early enough to start thinking and preparing for a presidential bid. And I think we're going to see a lot of this. And here's what I love about the fact that she's just done this. Let's forget and put aside the fact that she might not have that much, or the probability might not be that high for her right now. Let's just forget that for a second. What I love about this is that she's now going to plant the seed in so many other true, younger, modern day conservatives who aren't going to be bought, but already have a huge social media presence. We have to remember, look what Obama did. He was the first politician to use social media to get into power, to actually get the position that he wanted to be elected for. Nobody knew who Obama was before that. And I don't think without Facebook that Obama ever would have stood a chance. He executed social media perfectly, and that's what got him into the presidency. So I do think all of these younger, more modern day conservatives with their social media platforms today, I think if they really play this right, that we'll see a lot of these stand a much bigger chance than some of the older politicians who don't even know how to tune their computer on, let alone tweet. So I think what it's going to do, it's going to force out the younger congresswomen to think, hey, maybe I should make a move. We're going to start to find out who the true patriots are soon. And what I would like to see is competition so severe that the likes of Mitt Romney don't even stand a chance. Because we don't need that type of president. Romney sold out. He sold out in Utah, who absolutely despised the man. I don't know how he keeps getting reelected. Maybe he won't next time around. But he's also sold out to the Republican Party. He's voted to impeach Trump. He's constantly voting against everything that the Republican Party stands for. So Candace coming forward is going to definitely be a threat to some of the other candidates that had wanted to run for quite some time, or maybe who have run in the past and have failed. So this is going to force out other conservatives. It's going to get the wheels turning across the board. I think it's a great strategic move. Whether she truly intends to run or not, her tweeting that this weekend is going to force the hand of so many other conservatives. And that is what we need to see right now. So we can start thinking and preparing about how to take back both the Senate and the White House come 2022 and then ultimately 2024. Let's go back to the Keyboard Warrior cam and see what other people have to say about the prospect of Candace Owens running for president. Christina says she would make a great president, well-spoken, well-educated. All I can say is please do. Harris does not belong in office, but this beautiful young lady does, so please do run. Do you guys think she'll actually run? Throw a comment. I'd love to know if you guys actually think she's going to run. Yes or no? Do you really think she'll run? And if she does run, do you think she actually could win? I'd like to know all of your feedback because according to all of those comments here, thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, tens of thousands of comments, she has an overwhelming amount of support. Patrick says from everybody, mind you, from men, women, white, black, she's got a great solid base here. I think she represents the Republican Party beautifully, everything that she stands for. Patrick says you'd be the first lady president. You've got my vote. I love the way you think and use your words and the way you love Jesus. There is hope, love, kindness, and trust. I see you in your eyes and I know what's in your heart. You will truly help America as a whole, united all. Regardless of who runs, this is what we need. We need honesty back in Washington. And I know honesty and politics don't mix well, but that's what we need. We need honest, loyal candidates who are going to represent their party fairly and accurately rather than trying to think about how to cater to both Democrats and Republicans, which is what Mitt Romney constantly does. We know Mitt Romney's going for a presidential bid in 2024. That's the only reason he has turned his back on the Republican Party, because he desperately wants to gain the votes from the Democrats. That's all he's done. So when, not if, but when Biden and Harris completely destroy America, which they're going to, and it's not going to take long, he's already wiped out tens of thousands of jobs and undone every single positive America first structure that Donald Trump's put in place. So not if, but when Biden destroys it all, Democrats are probably going to be looking for a candidate who they believe, whether it's Republican or Democrat, to really get America back on track. Ted Cruz has stepped up. He's done phenomenal. I think Ted Cruz is doing exactly what Romney's doing, but for all the right reasons. I think Ted Cruz is saying, you know what? Trump's base has been left abandoned, deserted. There's not much hope. They need hope right now. The Republican Party needs hope, at least the conservative side of the Republican Party. I'm not talking so much about the Republican moderates, but I'm talking about more about the conservatives. They need hope. Let's not forget, Trump himself might come back on the scene 2024. So the GOP is fractured. It's split in the middle. We have the hardcore patriots, conservatives. We have the Republican moderates. Who is going to bring this party together, get us back on track, gain the respect of the American people, and move America forward? If it's not Candace Owens, is it Josh Hall? Was it Rand Paul? Is it Ted Cruz? There's a lot of prospects out there, but they need to start making moves now. We need to hear them fight. Because if they pull a Mitch McConnell, they're going to be the last people that we actually want in office. And that's the problem with this whole thing. We have not fought hard enough, which is why we are where we are. Like I said in the beginning of the show, the fractured GOP is not Trump's fault. I've heard people blame it on Trump. Oh, it's Trump's fault. He completely... No, Trump did not ruin the Republican Party. He did not fracture the GOP. The Republican leaders allowed the left to destroy the Republican Party. That's exactly what happened. They did not fight. They weren't as aggressive as the left. The left, I'll be the first to say it, as a diehard conservative and Republican, The left deserved to have taken everything from us. They won it, whether they stole it or not, they have it. We did not fight hard enough to protect what we had. We were not aggressive enough. They fought dirty. We didn't fight dirty. All I keep hearing is that we're the party of peace. And I've said it too. And I want to be the party of peace. I do want to be known as the party of peace. I think peace will get us a lot further than any amount of violence can. Look what's happened with BLM and all the riots and Antifa they continue to cause and disrupt American cities. It's not getting them anywhere. It hasn't done a damn bit of good. So no, I don't think violence is going to get any party anywhere. So I do like being the party of peace, but it doesn't mean we can't fight dirty, because that's what it takes now. The left fight dirty. We do not fight dirty. And the left have left-wing media, CNN. They have mainstream media colluding with them, fighting dirty with them. And that is why so many Republicans are furious with Fox right now, and why they have lost so many viewers and Fox's ratings have plummeted, because Fox has not took a right-wing stand to fight dirty with us Republicans to attack back and counter the progressive agenda that the left have rammed down this country's throat. So we need our right-wing media to fight with the conservative Republicans just as much as CNN is fighting with left-wing. It's a whole coordinated effort that the left have mastered very well over the last few years. And they continue to dominate because we have nobody that is stepping up and being as vocal, which is why I love seeing these freshman congresswomen, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace. I'm not sure if she's a freshman congresswoman, although I've recently just got to know her. I'll have to look into that, but she's one of the newer ones. South Carolina congresswoman who's gone up against AOC and been very vocal about the fact that she straight up lied about what she witnessed during the Capitol Hill attack. And these are the types of Republicans that we need. We need the Nancy Maces. We need the Lauren Boeberts. We need the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. Regardless of how far right or extreme Marjorie Taylor Greene might be, she's only guilty of giving her opinion. Doesn't take it with a grain of salt, for all I care. But what has she really done to be removed from these committees? But look at what we just did. Although minority leader of the Republican House didn't remove her himself, he still didn't speak up and wasn't aggressive enough about the fact that it's a sham what we just did, or what we allowed to just happen to Greene. And now look at, here we are. The impeachment hoax begins today, round 2. Why is this even a thing? It is insane. All I see online are memes with very nice patriotic quotes from the likes of Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and it's great. And I love seeing them shame the left for putting us through this, but that's not good enough. They need to be out there up in the faces of Pelosi and Schumer the same way they were up in ours for the last 4 years. They're not strong enough. They need to be out there. They need to be more aggressive, and they need to start defending this party, which is what we all voted them in for and expect them to do. Otherwise, none of them are going to last long. Let's head back to the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what others have to say about Candace Owens and her potential presidential bid for 2024. Michelle says, I will say this. Miss Owens has more common sense in her little finger than all of our supposed leaders put together. I would vote for her in a minute. That's what we just said. Our leaders are not fighting hard enough. They're not getting the job done. And I want to see them all primaried in 2022, or at least the ones who continue to turn against their own party. Chris Jacobs, District 27, my own district. I couldn't believe that he was one of the 3 New York State Republicans who voted to out Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, I know New York is as liberal as it gets, but man, was I disappointed to see Chris Jacobs, District 27, my own district here in upstate New York, one of only 3 Republican New Yorkers to vote Marjorie Taylor Greene off those 2 committees. Out of the 10 or 11, I think it was 11, out of the 11 Republicans, 3 were New York. He was one of those 3. Those are not the kind of Republicans that we need representing our party. That is not why we voted for them. Because when you vote to kick Marjorie Taylor Greene off of these 2 committees, what you're really doing is you're voting to silence us. You're voting to suppress freedom of speech. Cano says if Trump is still running, remember, Trump might still be on the scene. He said, we are not finished yet. He's made it very clear recently in videos that have been thrown up online. Trump said, we are not finished yet. Cano says, if Trump is still running, I think a Trump and Owens administration would be amazing. I would think she would push Trump to be more presidential with his words. They would be great together. I support her on her own as well. I didn't think about that. I think that's a really good and fair proposal. Trump, president, 2024, with Owens as the vice president. That would turn a lot of heads. And just like Cano just said, Candace might be the type of vice president that would be able to actually keep Trump in check. Let's be honest, Mike Pence wasn't strong enough. I mean, the second he had a chance, he turned his back on Trump and every other Republican conservative as well. He didn't even fight to back Trump up, at least not what I saw. So we need a go-getter. Whoever runs, we need go-getters in office. And if Trump did run and put Candace as VP, I think it would be a powerhouse team. I think they would have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. I think it would be a wonderful combination of true patriotism that this country desperately needs right now. So we need to fight dirty. We need fresh blood in Congress. We need younger, more moderate conservatives to step up who are also patriotic. Do we really need, per se, a Trump-style conservative? Or do we need a candidate that represents all Republicans? And if Trump's going to be that candidate, then he needs to start proving now that he could represent all Republicans. Because if Trump does decide to come out and he doesn't lead all Republicans to believe that he's going to represent them all this time and not just the patriots, then personally, I don't think Trump stands a chance. He needs both sides on board. You have to remember, Romney is now going for the rhino side of the Republican Party, while Ted Cruz fights to keep the Patriot base. So I'm not sure either of those are a good thing for the Republican Party right now. We don't need a split party with one candidate represent the Patriots and one candidate representing the moderate Republicans or the moderate conservatives. We need a Republican candidate who's going to represent both sides of the fractured GOP. That is personally the only way that I believe we stand a chance at taking back control. So we need to be very careful who we put out there, but we do need to start thinking about it right now. Michael says, I think Candace is awesome and would make a fine president, but that unfortunately would make little difference considering the number of vile creatures in Congress. Our country would be better served if she and other outstanding citizens like her were to replace those foul career politicians who have taken up permanent residence within Congress. Again, it's how we started the show with the first comment. The first comment that we saw today, she said, Candace, I think it's great that you're thinking about it, but I do think you should run for Congress first. We need more people like you in Congress. And I do think that's how we do ultimately take back control of the White House. I think we start with fixing Congress first. First, we start by fixing the fractured GOP. We get all the Republicans on board. We unite the GOP. That is the first thing we do. I don't even care about uniting the United States of America right now. That is completely a lost cause, especially with Joe Biden in charge. He is everything but unity. So forget the United States for a minute. Let's focus on uniting the Republican Party. And if we get more people like Candace Owens and other true patriots who also represent the moderate conservative side, I think that's what starts this unity. It restores faith that we're actually going to get what we voted for. Angela says, see, all of us conservatives or trumpets or whatever we're called these days don't have an issue with a woman president or vice president. We just want the right one. If Candace continues the career she's on, she will make a great candidate down the road one day. So there's clearly mixed views here. There's no doubt, based on what I'm reading here, based on what we've gone through today, there's no doubt that Candace would make an excellent career politician. And there's no doubt that she could potentially make a great presidential candidate one day. But where the views are a bit different are where a lot of us think that she should probably try to make a little bit more of a difference in Congress first before stepping up into such a powerful position. She needs the backing. She needs to prove herself. And I think that's what most of the party is going to want to see right now. Remember, we need a representative or a candidate that's going to represent all types of Republicans, not just the patriots or just the moderate conservatives. Douglas says, she's got my vote. I'm a white man who voted for Trump. Looks like the liberal media lied about who I am. I think this is great. I think what Candace would do, if anything, she would prove the media wrong. Because as so many white men just said and proved, they're not racist. They're being painted as white supremacists or far-right extremists or racists. Every Republican seems to be a racist today. But look at the overwhelming support for Candace Owens, a black female. She'd have my vote. She'd have tens of millions of votes, whether she went for Congress or the House or the Senate or presidential bid. So it's not that we have a problem with women. It's not that we have a problem with black people or any race for that matter. We have a problem with how they were selected based on, the Democrats aren't going to admit it, but we all know it, based on gender and race. That is what we have a problem with. We have a problem with equity, not equality. And I posted this morning on my own Facebook feed. I wrote, equity is what I personally have a problem with. Equity is misleading and misguiding the American people. Equity will never work. Equality means we give everyone a fair opportunity to prove themselves. That is where I agree. Equity means everyone gets the same job. That's not called freedom. That's not called democracy. That's called socialism. That's called communism. But are you surprised? Because that is where the far left radical progressive agenda is taking us. Equity is socialism. I mean, you can't even define it any better than that. That is no good for America. And it's not a realistic and true representation of how life works. I will teach my son to fight to win. Well, the rest of you teach your kids about equity, to be substandard, and that it's okay to be second and third and fourth and fifth and last. Not my kid. My kid will thrive because I will teach him everything but equity. I will slam that equity door and leave it at school and in the classroom. And that's what I would encourage all parents to do if they want their kid to at least stand a chance at becoming something in America. Because that is the American dream, fighting to be number one. So I'm all for equality. I've always been for equality. So don't let the media try to paint anyone who thinks equity is BS as a racist, because equity and equality are not the same thing. Don't let them fool you. So Candace Owens, potential presidential candidate for 2024. You never know. She dropped a huge political bomb on us over the weekend. Overwhelming support now coming flooding in. Is she serious about this, or is it just something she's trying to do to get her base all wound up? Who knows? But the next couple of years is going to be very interesting to see, and I hope to God it forces the hands of so many other true patriot conservatives to come forward and say, hey, you know what? I'm in too. We're going to take out these sneaky liberals and take back control of the White House and put America first and on track. And I'd love to see Candace Owens make the first move. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today at You Made It Political. We're on Spotify now. We're on iTunes, YouTube, Facebook. We're really making big moves now. We're getting out there for the world to see. Somebody's got to keep those sneaky dems in check, and I'm going to do it. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.